Hi, and welcome to this screencast in our Ancient World class. If you are watching this screencast, it means that I am at the LIS tennis tournament. So again, I apologize for not being in class. I know that I miss a few class periods due to tennis, and I am truly sorry about that. But I hope that this screencast will serve you well and that you can understand everything that is going on in this section here. If you do have any questions, about this, as always, please let me know. Write them down so you can remember them, and then we'll discuss them in class on Friday. So what we are going to talk about today first is the third strand of thought in Chinese kind of belief systems. Before we talked about Confucianism and Taoism. Both of those tried to fix Chinese society, which was very unstable around this time in the Qin Dynasty. The third strand of thought here is something called legalism. So that will be our first topic today. So this is another school of thought in regards to how to fix Chinese society. Again, during the latter part of the Qin Dynasty, society was very chaotic, and Confucius and Lao Tzu came up with these ideas on how to fix society. Legalism is another school of thought here. Legalism is very different from both Confucianism and Taoism. The main thought, the main idea in legalism is that, humans are evil. They did not believe that humans were good. And to some extent you can understand them. I mean, we look at this and it sounds very bad, very awful. But if you think about the fact that they lived in a time where for a couple of hundred years China had been going through a really rough time where there was a lot of fighting, there was no really existing laws, people just kind of did what they wanted to do. It was a very chaotic society. So the legalists believe that humans are evil, and the only way to keep them in check in control was through harsh laws. We needed to have very, very harsh laws so that people did not get tempted to do bad things. That was their main idea. So you needed harsh laws. And the legalists also believed that we needed society needed one strong ruler. So if you propose to a legalist that democracy, where everybody gets a say, that's a good idea, the legalist will say, no, this is nonsense. We need one strong ruler to keep everybody else in check. The more people we get involved in government, the worse it's going to be. So society needed one strong ruler. That's kind of the main idea here. As we'll see here, legalism will fit very well into Chinese society because it's going to be the new school of thought that's adopted by the new dynasty that's going to overtake the Qin. So the Qin dynasty went through the time of the warring states, and this is roughly 600 to 200 BCE. And this is a time period where basically, again, we have chaos. Towards the end of this time period, we have one individual, a man named Qin Shi Huangdi. He was a ruler over one of the Chinese states, and he was a very, very ambitious man. As a matter of fact, this is kind of an interesting factor. He came to power when he was 13 years old. So you can kind of think about some of the 13-year-old guy friends that you have, imagine them ruling a entire Chinese state, and not only did they do that, but he wanted to take over all of China, and at the age of 13 he started to take over all of China. Very, very ambitious man. I actually have a picture of him here. This is him, obviously a little bit older than the age of 13 here. So already from the age of 13 he started to extend his power, and in 221 BCE he basically overthrew the Shao and declared himself Chinese emperor. So he declared himself Chinese emperor in 221 BCE. And he completely changed the Chinese society. So he completely changed Chinese society. First of all, he adopted legalism, which meant that he passed very, very harsh laws. And this is one of those instances where it's almost impossible to exaggerate here. This is one of those cases where, let's say for the sake of argument, that you turn around to your neighbor that you're sitting right next to and you insult them in some way or another. You say, hey, I don't happen to like the color of your hair, or whatever it might be. That, under Qin law, could have gotten you killed. That could have gotten you executed. You could have gotten the death penalty for that. That's how harsh these laws were. They were extremely, extremely, extremely harsh. So that's important to know. These were very, very harsh rules. The other thing that he did is that he wanted to centralize his state. So he set out to centralize his state, the Chinese state, and you might remember that to centralize something means that he, the ruler, has more power than, let's say, the people out in provinces or governors or something of that nature. If you centralize your state, it means that the emperor has all the power. So how did he do this? Well, for one thing, he built a lot of roads. And you might ask yourself, well, how did that increase his power? Well, for one thing, it made it possible for his army to travel out to different parts of China very, very quickly. So his army could travel out very, very quickly, and if somebody was not doing what he wanted them to do, he would travel out with his army and basically kill everybody that he saw that he thought disagreed with him. Again, very, very brutal guy here. The other thing that he did that really helped him was that he always strove to expand his empire. And this worked very, very well. He was a very good military commander. So he really extended the Chinese territories, especially in the west. The only area where he really struggled was in the north. And this is going to be one of these themes in Chinese history that we'll talk about all throughout this year. This is one thing that I really want you to remember, that just about from this point on in Chinese history, just about every single dynasty struggles with their northern border. There are these people up north that always cause trouble for the Chinese dynasties, whether it's the Qin Dynasty or any later dynasties. This population group that caused him trouble was called the Xiongnu. So the Xiongnu caused him trouble. So to solve this problem, he came up with an interesting idea. He said, I'm going to build a wall. So he constructed wall. This is of course the Great Wall of China. And I have a map here of the Great Wall of China. This is the entire Great Wall of China. This is Beijing right here. This is this area in China right here. This is the north, as you can see. And this is the entire wall. Now, be mindful here that he did not construct all of this wall. He basically constructed this piece around here, right there, which is still a, this piece right here, which is still a large piece, but not all of it. But he started the Great Wall. He started the Great Wall. The other thing that he did to kind of improve his state here was that he split government up into 3 different sections. He had the military, he had the civil service, which is basically all the civil jobs in the government, all the bureaucracy, all the clerks. And then he came up with a new concept, a new section of the government called the censorate. And basically what the censorate did was that it worked as kind of a spy agency. So these people that worked for the censorate checked up, or yeah, I think checked up is good, on the rest of the government. So if you were not doing well, if you were not taking care of your job, if you weren't doing your job in the government properly, then somebody from the censorate would show up and they would say, you better shape up here or something really, really bad will happen to you. And again, remembering how bad how harsh these laws were, you wanted to make sure that you did your job appropriately. The censorate is one thing that's going to stay in China for a long period of time. So even after Qin Shi Huangdi is dead, the censorate is still around. So, as you can imagine, this guy was not very popular. People were very opposed to his harsh laws. A lot of people had to work to build the Great Wall. A lot of people died in that. They were very unhappy with that. So when he died, he died in 210 BCE. His son took over. But people rebelled. And in 202 BCE, we have a new dynasty. This is going to be the Han Dynasty. So as you can see, the Qin Dynasty is the shortest dynasty in Chinese history. It only lasted from 221 BCE to really, in 210, he dies, Qin Shi Huangdi, his son takes over, and things are just kind of deteriorating into chaos there. And in 202 BCE, it's over, and the Han Dynasty takes over. The last thing that I want to show you here is that Qin Shi Huangdi is also famous for creating, before he died, this huge army that should serve him in the afterlife. And this is, of course, the Terracotta Army. And this is a Google image search on the Terracotta Army. And I'm sure you've seen this before. All of these clay figures, as you can see, they're horses, they are very meticulously drawn faces. There are all kinds of different statues here, and there are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of these statues, all with individual faces that were supposed to serve him in the afterlife. So these were found in the 1970s, and they are still being excavated today. As you can see, there's in this picture right here. They're inside this building where people are still working to dig them out today. So if you want to